Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
Very nice day outside, and that makes Matthew a very happy boy, because whenever it's dark, I hated the daylight savings because we lost an hour or whatever, but I am way happier now that it's going to be bright outside for longer periods of time, because your boy, I don't know, got seasonal depression, something like that. Okay, it's not that serious. I just don't like when it's dark, and whenever it's light, whenever it's bright, I feel good. I feel energized, and yeah, that has nothing to do with today's Minisode, but I'm also kind of fasting right now, and I just wanted to go ahead and say that it's not for fat loss reasons. I simply just haven't gone to the grocery store and I don't have any food. So I'm going to try and get this done quickly so I can go to the grocery store and get some lunch. And that should be a nice segue into today's Minisode. First off, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Minisode on the More Than Fitness podcast. Today's Minisode is Minisode number 19. How many times can I say Minisode within a 2-minute period? But yeah, today's Minisode is going to be on muscle gain. It's for the ugly stepchild of the fitness industry, because no one cares that you can't gain weight, right? No one's going to have sympathy for you. Everyone wishes they could have your speedy metabolism where you can eat cinnamon rolls every day for breakfast and still not put on weight. However, I was somebody who was kind of in this camp growing up. I was kind of a quote unquote hard gainer, at least for a little bit, until I got serious about my eating, serious about my training. And then I realized it was just simply a matter of effort and consistency day after day after day, along with some peanut butter and jellies in the bathroom between classes during high school. Peanut butter and jellies are a great muscle gain food, just so everyone knows. Yeah, but we're going to talk muscle gain, right? And the first thing that I want to start off with, because muscle gain's obviously, like, this could be an hour-long podcast. So I'm going to try and hit on all these points as much as I can. But I think the one thing that people have to understand with muscle gain, because often a lot of you listening to this are going to be afraid of seeing the scale weight go up, right? You're afraid of seeing the scale go up because you're afraid that you're going to be putting on body fat. Typically, if you're a hard gainer, or if you're somebody who just had a long diet period and now you're trying to switch the gears a little bit and turn it into muscle gain, this is going to come with some resistance, because you've been possibly dieting for a long time, watching that scale go down, and then now you have to see it go up. Or if you're a hard gainer, you're afraid that whenever you see the scale go up and you see even the smallest inkling of fat around your midline, you think that the world has came to an end and you have to immediately start dieting again. And so for the hard gainers, what typically happens is they will mega bulk for like 3 weeks, usually spurred because they saw some big jack dude and they're tired of being skinny. So they're just going to eat everything in sight. They're going to lift super hard. But then they realize they just end up getting fluffy, right? At least they end up gaining a bunch of water weight and then start freaking out. And then 3 weeks later, they're dieting again, and they're not making any progress whatsoever. So what I'm getting at here is that muscle gain is a commitment. You're going to have, if you want to put on some serious muscle mass, you're going to have to commit for months at a time. And what a lot of people don't want to hear is that muscle gain is actually harder than fat loss, because especially if you're a hard gainer, because if you already have a hard time putting on weight, if you just burn tons of calories, it's so funny that those people are the ones who are the most scared of gaining weight, because literally just like reduce your stop paying so much attention to the food that you're eating, just like you were before, and you're going to lose the fat within like 4 weeks. So it's just like, you have to be able to put that fear aside, say that you're going to commit to at least 12 weeks of hardcore bulking. And this, as I'm going to get into, this doesn't mean that you're going to be eating everything in sight. No, this just means that you are going to commit to seeing the scale go up, possibly seeing a little bit of fat and water around your midsection without freaking out, and just understanding that this is a long-term play. right? As with all of this is, it's just like if you're trying to gain muscle mass, you've got to commit to it for long periods of time. And then I promise, whenever you decide to cut down again, if you've built adequate muscle during that period and you've done things intelligently, you're going to reap the benefits of that fat loss and then revealing all the muscle that you built. So you're going to look better later on down the road. It's like, it's okay. Like, don't fear the scale too much going up. And if you've been dieting down for a long time and you're afraid of seeing the scale go up, again, remember that this is a long-term play. You're trying to, if you've dieted down for a while and you're trying to switch gears into a reverse diet, and where you're trying to add on more muscle mass, maybe build, quote unquote, build your metabolism back up so you can eat more food. This is long-term plays, right? So don't freak out. Fat loss can always be there. Don't worry. You can always switch gears and go back into fat loss if you want to, but just promise me to commit to at least 12 to 16 weeks of increasing calories over time, committing to seeing the scale go up over time, getting stronger in the gym, and adding more muscle. You will be very happy with the result 3, 6, 12 months down the road. I promise you. So yeah, that's the first thing. Muscle gain is harder than fat loss, so you have to commit to it for extended periods of time if you want it to work. Back to the weight. So a big indicator that you are gaining muscle, you have to have certain measurements in place to know that if what you're doing, again, is working. The thing that everybody always comes to me and they're like, listen, no matter what I do, like the thing that Hardgainers always will come and say, like, dude, I eat entire pizzas like all the time. And I still, no matter what I can do, whatever I do, I can't gain weight. However, what they don't tell me is that the day that they had the pizza, they literally had maybe a small snack that morning, and then dinner came around, they're ravenously hungry, they eat an entire pizza, and sure, that could be like 1,500 calories, but they're still probably less than 2,000 calories for the entire day. And if you're trying to gain muscle mass, of course, this is going to be context dependent on each person. However, 2,000 calories for most people isn't going to necessarily cut it if you're, say, like a 170-pound male who consistently lifts weights. It's like you're going to have to eat a little bit more than that. So what I would say is watch your weight on the scale. And if that weight is not going up and you just think, oh, there's nothing that I can do, you need to track your food to make sure that you're consistently eating as much as you need to every single day. The problem with the dude who says, oh, I can eat the entire pizza is he eats the entire pizza at night, and then the next day he wakes up and he basically fasts probably until lunch or later. And lunch, he has maybe a big meal, and then he maybe has another big meal at nighttime. And again, he's still averaging, or she, whatever, is averaging less than they need to in order to build quality muscle mass over time. You have to be consistently every single day eating enough to fuel your goals if you want to actually put on quality muscle mass, and you have to monitor your weight. And if you don't monitor your weight, you at least need to take measurements or take pictures, something like that. You need to make sure that you're doing something to know that what you're doing is working or not. I would just suggest the weight because it's going to be the most precise thing that you can probably do on a day-to-day basis that's super easy and quick. And what I would say is to focus on, typically for most people, it's going to be 0.5 to 1 pound, 1 pound gain per week on average. So if you're starting out this month at 170, by the end of the month, you want to be around 172 to 174 on average. So just weigh yourself each morning at the same time before you eat or drink, and then take the average at the end of the week. And you don't have to do it every single morning, like 4 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week could be plenty. And you'll be good to go. You don't have to be crazy about it. Just making sure that weight is trending upwards is probably a good idea that you are putting on some quality mass. With that being said, you're not going to have tons of calories, right? That's the thing with that happens because people just pack on the calories, right? They just eat everything because they're trying to gain muscle quickly, and they associate. Even if they know that eating more food isn't necessarily better, we just think, oh, if we eat tons of food, we're going to grow muscle better. And that's just simply not the case. What's going to happen is, sure, you may be optimizing your muscle building, but also you're adding on tons of unnecessary fat. And where that can be an issue is later on down the road, whenever you have to diet back down and you have to go through a fat loss phase, you're going to have on more fat, which means you're going to need to diet for longer, which also means you have a greater risk of losing that hard-earned muscle that you put on in the first place. So, with that being said, there's been plenty of research on this, and I'm pretty sure that the consensus for most people is about 100 to 200 extra calories per day above your maintenance calories. So if you're eating, again, 2,000 calories every single day and you're maintaining your body weight for the entire week, that's about your maintenance calories. So you would only need to eat probably about 2,100 to 2,200 calories per day to optimize your muscle building. Right. And I know to a lot of people that's like, oh, that's not a lot. It's like, yeah, no, it's not a lot. You've been tricked in thinking that you have to go on this perma bulk in order to gain weight. But anybody who tells you that they just, crushing McDonald's and everything like that, it's like all you're doing is putting on unnecessary fat that's going to take longer to take off in the long run. And you could also be screwing up a bunch of other myriad of health factors as well, because your general health, of course, also matters besides your body composition. And if you're just eating tons of shitty food, sure, you may be gaining the muscle mass and stuff that you're looking for. However, your insulin sensitivity could be terrible. You could be constantly bloated. You could be having digestion issues, feeling groggy, fatigued constantly. It's like, that's not a good place to be. So 100 to 200 extra calories per day above maintenance, and you should be good to go. And again, this is where tracking your food can be helpful. It's not absolutely necessary. However, if you have been struggling with this in the past, or it's just something, or if you are coming off a very sensitive dieting phase and you're trying to reverse diet, so you're eating very low calories right now because you've gone on a 12-week diet or 24-week diet or something like that, and you need to slowly increase your calories so you don't gain a lot of fat very quickly, this is another case where you need to consider tracking your food so that you can stay on point and not put on tons of fat mass along with your muscle mass. It's likely going to happen for most people, at least just to a small extent. But the closer you monitor, if you're really worried about it, the closer you monitor your weight every day and then also your calories, the better shape that you're going to be in. So yes, 100 to 200 extra calories per day above maintenance. That's where you want to be. So what I would do and what I do with a lot of my clients is I would set their protein typically around 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, or if you just want to be super simple, just a gram per pound of body weight. If you're super overweight, you need to lean more on the 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound. Like if you're 250 pounds and 35% body fat or 40% body fat or something like that, you don't need to be eating 250 grams of protein, right? It's not a good use of where your calories are coming from. However, I think that in that case, about 0.7 is a good range to start from. And then once you set your protein, you've got your protein needs met, right? That's good. And whenever you're in a surplus, protein, it's still important, don't get me wrong, but it becomes less important whenever you are in a calorie surplus as a whole, because your body has more nutrients to pull from other macronutrients as well. So carbohydrates, fats, to help fuel your exercise. And so your body isn't going to have to pull from your muscle tissue per se to fuel the workouts. You have an abundance of carbs and fats going around and also fat on your body for your body to use as fuel whenever you're doing this. So whenever you're increasing calories, what I would say is set your protein. And then after that, I would increase your calories from mostly carbohydrates and a little bit of fats. So carbs, they're going to fuel your performance. So in the gym, and that's going to be vital for muscle gain. That's another thing that I want to emphasize here is you cannot just simply eat more food and then build more muscle, right? You have to lift sufficiently and force your muscles to grow due to progressive overload. And again, this could be a topic that I could go on forever. However, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll get into that in just a second, just a little bit. I'll touch on it just a little bit, but for the most part, increase your calories each day from mostly carbohydrates and fats. For most of my clients, typically what I would do is whenever they do come on a weight plateau and they're trying to gain muscle mass, if they've been plateaued for about 2 weeks now on the current calories and macros that I have them on, then I'll just bump up the carbs about 15 to 20 grams and I'll bump up the fats about 5 grams. And that typically yields about 100 calorie increase per day. And that's all you need to make sure that you keep the growth going. All right, one sec. Let me check the time. Oh yeah, we're good. We're good. About to wrap this up and get you guys in the gym and building some more muscle. All right, next thing I want you to do is switch to more energy dense foods. So this is the case where you don't necessarily, if you don't feel like tracking or if you don't want to track, or if it's just not as important to you, just all you have to do now is just consider switching to more energy dense foods in conjunction with your nutrient dense foods. And what I mean by that is a few minisodes back where I talked about staying hungry staying hungry while dieting, staying full while dieting is your food choices. And whenever you're dieting, in that example, I used oatmeal, right? So whenever you're dieting, to make foods less tasty is a good idea, making the food more bland, because then you don't eat it as quickly. And also you feel more satiated after you get done eating it. So the example I used was having just oatmeal, plain oatmeal with cinnamon and Splenda, oatmeal, cinnamon, Splenda, and berries. And that's going to be a good fat loss meal because it's not super tasty, but it's still good, right? And it's a very low calorie meal. However, if you're bulking and you want to eat more energy dense foods, this is the case where you would maybe switch that oatmeal over to something like maybe a bagel or something like that. A bagel is going to be something that you can eat super quick. It's not going to fill you up a ton, but you can also, with the bagel, you can put on peanut butter, you can put on honey, you can add other foods on top of it to make it tastier and to bump up those calories super, super easy. Or instead of the oatmeal, you could choose for a cereal. As you guys know, eating cereal is typically going to be a little bit easier to eat than dry oatmeal. Another example I used was fruit. So whenever you're bulking compared to whenever you're dieting, something like watermelon or strawberries is going to be a great choice because it has high water content. So it's mostly water. And think about the juiciness of these watermelons and strawberries and fruits like that. And then compare that to a banana, right? Banana is not very juicy at all, right? It's much more dense. And as a result, bananas are also more calorically dense than watermelon and strawberries, which it makes sense, right? It's like it's got more mass as a whole. It has less water content. And so there's more food in general. And so it's going to be more calories per bite. And that's what you want to think about. These little small switches, if you don't want to, again, track your food, you can make these changes if you're having just a bunch of veggies on your plate. So let's say you have the fistful of protein, and then you have half veggies on your plate, and then a fourth of it. So you have a fourth protein, a fourth of a starch. So like potatoes or something like that. And then you have the other half as veggies. Well, instead of doing that, have a fourth protein, a fourth veggies, and half of your plate as starch. And that's going to easily increase the calories there. That's a simple switch that you can do to bump up your calories. And lastly, as far as strength training goes, you simply need to focus on that, getting stronger. Get stronger in the 8 to 12 rep range, and that's going to be a very good indicator that you're gaining muscle mass over time. And the ones that I want you to focus on your strength is going to be your compound lifts. So your bench, your squat, your deadlift, and all the variations of those, right? So dumbbell bench, right, for example, or machine bench even. Bench, squat, deadlift, hip thrust, pull-ups, chin-ups, military press, rows, pull downs, whatever. It's like these compound movements that are multi-joint movements that you have to use multiple joints, as opposed to say a curl or something where you're just using a single joint, or a tricep push down or something like that, or a dumbbell lateral. Like, don't worry about getting stronger on those. Think about getting stronger. Like, if you add 20 pounds to your bench press, I can probably guarantee that your chest is going to be bigger. And what I mean by that is in the 8 to 12 rep range, if you can get 185 for 8 reps in month 1, but in month 4, you can get 185 for 15 reps, it's likely that you're going to be bigger as a result of that. And lastly, your body is going to recover much faster than when you're cutting. So that whenever you're bulking, it's a better idea to really push your training. So adding in maybe more drop sets, having higher intensity, hitting muscle parts more frequently. These are all going to be good ideas because your body has extra nutrients to fuel your recovery. Obviously, there's a threshold here. You can't just constantly push your body and things like that. Fatigue still matters. However, you're going to be able to battle that fatigue a little bit better when you're trying to gain muscle with extra calories as opposed to dieting with fewer calories. All right, guys, and that is a wrap on Minisode number 19. Now get out there, build some muscle, and look fucking fabulous. All right, so as always, thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. Talk soon.